Welcome back to Wow Drama Stories, where you get all the drama from a safe distance. In story number 1, a man is upset with his fiancée because she keeps telling everyone that she is the big breadwinner in the relationship, but in reality, he ends up paying for most of the bills. And in story number 2, the timestamp for that is in the description box, we have a man whose grandmother threatens to go no contact with him unless he helps out his cousin. Story number 1, Opie writes, my fiancé and I moved in together shortly before we got engaged. Before we did, we discussed how we'd split the housework and bills, 50-50 down the middle with some wiggle room for when the other needs help. When we moved, it was into her parents' 2-story garage that they converted into basically an apartment. They offered a low rent, $700 total, and pitch in for the electric and internet so we could save money for our own place and wedding. My fiancé earns more than me, and that's cool. I'm proud of her. Before we moved in together, it always seemed like she was living paycheck to paycheck. And I always chalked it up to the apartment she had prior having insane high rent. She stuck to the 50-50 arrangement at first concerning bills, but she missed often and I had to remind her about it. Post-engagement, she's back to living paycheck to paycheck, either missing or very late with her part of the rent monthly. The 2 utilities we pay, groceries, late with her car payment. Her parents have talked to me multiple times about rent, and I've covered her missing portion to get us caught up. And then try talking to her. It always turns into her saying we should just move if her parents are going to hound us. I told her we're lucky it's her parents, because anywhere else would have kicked our asses out. On top of that, I pay my own bills, do about 65% housework, arrange and pay for most of our dates and vacations, gifts for her, pay most towards our pets. I've suggested a financial coach, but what kicks me is whenever we're around others, she boasts about being the breadwinner since she earns more, goes on about the stresses of being the main source of income, all the hours she has to work to, quote, pay all our bills, unquote. I was letting it slide until a few days ago we were at a get-together. She and her sister started up again about her being the breadwinner. Her sister said something to the effect of her ex-boyfriend had a hard time being with someone who earned more. And my fiancé went, quote, good thing Opie doesn't mind me bringing home the pay, unquote. I told her just because she earns more doesn't make her the breadwinner when she blows it all on herself and I'm paying most of the bills. She's embarrassed now and keeps saying I made her look bad and got her in trouble with her parents because they want to see what she spends her money on each month. But I don't think I did anything wrong. Am I the a-hole? Opie gave some additional information in his comments, and amongst them he did reveal that they are both in their 30s, so it's not an age thing. I thought at first we're dealing with somebody in the early 20s still learning how to manage her money, but that's not the case. Opie also mentioned that she gets deliveries of Amazon packages, etc., and that it's confusing to her parents as well as to him, considering she never has money to pay for rent. So, Opie, I do not think you are the a-hole. I think you've got your pride like everybody else, and you didn't like that you kind of look bad in front of people when your fiancé keeps going on about how she's paying for everything, almost like you're freeloading off of her. That said, I don't think there was any malice behind what she was saying. I think it wasn't so much about Opie making you look bad, but rather a case of making herself look good in front of other people. And I also rather suspect, Opie, that your fiancé, she kind of hoped that her parents were going to say, don't worry about the rent, you don't have to pay. It seems that your fiancé has to learn the difference between essentials and luxuries. But let's see what some other people have to say about it, and we do have some replies from OP as well. Someone writes, "Not the a-hole. Though you're focusing on the wrong problems, forget perception. You need to sort out her financial irresponsibility before you marry, or things aren't going to get better." To this, OP replies, "I've put the brakes on any more wedding planning until she either sees a financial coach or a therapist to figure out what's up with her way of doing things." Someone else writes, "Not the a-hole. What makes a breadwinner is being the primary financial support pillar for the household. She's not doing it, but she wants people to regard her as doing it." Honestly, I'm a little weirded out by her bragging about it. My mom was the breadwinner all my life. My dad's salary was typically about 1/3 of hers, and he was in a much less stable industry until I was in college. So he had underemployment and unemployment sometimes, and they really didn't say much about it ever because they regarded all of their combined income as something that belonged to them together. To this, OP replies, "Kind of in the same boat. My parents fluctuated between who the, quote, breadwinner, unquote, was any given year between their jobs and splitting taking care of us. They never did this whole flex bit to others or each other. With her, it didn't really start until after we moved in together." Let's get a final comment and a reply from OP. Someone else comments, "Not the a-hole. But as with all relationship posts on Reddit, I have to stop and ask, have you actually talked with your fiancé about this? Have you sat down with her and said, quote, 'Honey, can we talk about how you always describe yourself as the breadwinner in conversations with friends? It really hurts me when you minimize my contributions to the household, considering we split expenses 50-50. And it's frustrating that you do so while also missing payments to the point where I have to step in and pay your share of the bills.' Unquote. Yeah, Reddit is going to tell you you aren't the a-hole because technically you aren't. Your fiancé should be paying her way. She shouldn't be belittling you in conversation. She should get a better grip on her finances. But you don't win any relationship awards for letting things that hurt you fester unspoken about until you finally burst and lash out at your fiancé. That might be justified, but it doesn't build a healthy relationship. Talking about problems with your significant other builds a healthy relationship." To this, OP replies, yes. I have had talks with her that I prefer she not talk about our finances and who pays what in public with others. I've tried to talk to her about the rent and how it's frustrating that her parents feel they have to come to me when she misses her portion because they can't get a straight answer out of her. I have discussed the frustrations and stress. During the discussion, I suggested she seek out a financial coach and why a financial coach would have a positive impact on both of us. Well, OP, I think you've done the right thing, putting the wedding on hold for now, the wedding planning, until your fiancé kind of gets her ducks in a row regarding her finances. This is very much the kind of thing you have to sort out before you say "I do," because it's not going to get better after. Most likely it won't get better after. And a lot of people end up getting divorced because of finances and because they feel differently about money. And on we go to story number 2. OP writes, "My cousin Jim, 40s, has always been a problem. In trouble with the law, 3 baby mamas, and has never held down a job. For some reason, Jim and his mom was adored by my grandma, and they could never do any wrong. Jim's mom died, and now Jim has no place to stay because he was evicted from his mom's house. My grandma lives in an assistant care facility because she's low income and wheelchair bound. I went to college and made a decent life. My grandma recently asked me to co-sign for an apartment and utilities for Jim so he can get back on his feet. I said no. My grandma is threatening to go no contact with me over it. And I said, that's her choice. But if she does, it means I'm cutting off my financial support for her. Extra clothing, food, streaming services. My grandma cussed at me and called me horrible names for not helping my cousin. I cancelled her Hulu. The home called asking what happened, and I told them they need to change her emergency contact to my cousin, because I'm not taking care of her if she treats me like that, or because I won't co-sign for my deadbeat cousin. OP, I don't think you are the a-hole at all. It is very smart of you not to want to co-sign for your cousin, considering your cousin has a track record of being irresponsible when it comes to money and, well, life in general. You also mentioned that your cousin and his mom could do no wrong in your grandmother's eyes, and, it could be that your grandmother likes that they always needed her, whereas you are very independent, it sounds like. Let's get some comments, and the first one says, not the a-hole. You would be crazy to provide any support to cousin Jim, financial or otherwise. If I were you, I wouldn't even want him to know where I lived. As for Grandma, if she wants to cut you off over not enabling Jim, well, why would you be expected to provide her financial support? Although it might be a nice gesture to keep paying some small expenses for her since she's stuck in there. Just don't interact unless she reaches out to apologize. Someone else comments, not the a-hole. Granny effed around and found out. Unless an elderly person has dementia or Alzheimer's, they're still just the person they've always been, but in an older body. You don't get a pass for being an a-hole just because your body has existed on the earth longer. Source was a caregiver for the elderly for a decade. Some people have mental decline and feel vulnerable. Some people are the same a-holes they've always been and assume their old age will give them a pass for it because people view elderly people as children, regardless for some reason. Someone else comments, not the a-hole. You're not the a-hole for setting boundaries. You may feel crappy, but based on your description, you have good reasons for not co-signing for your cousin, and you should feel no guilt for saying no. Your grandma can whine all she wants, but ultimately this is your life and your call, no one else's. Well, we've come to the end of another installment of Wow Drama Stories. If you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload again. Until next time, wishing you a drama-free life.